Change lives.
Cambiar vidas.
Change lives.
Change organizations.
改变世
Change
界
organizations.
Change
दुनिया में बदलाव.
Transformar el mundo.
Change the world.
So it's my turn. I think we've heard a lot of great talks today, but I think no day at the GSB would be complete without a talk about entrepreneurship. So here I am, and here we all are at Stanford in the heart of Silicon Valley. And if you think, and if you've been thinking that more and more startups seem to be starting up every day, you're right. According to Clara Chow, who's the head of the Kauffman Foundation, we now live in the most entrepreneurial time in history. Just think about that for a second. And I am part of the most entrepreneurial generation. So I want to start by sharing a story, another case study from this most entrepreneurial generation of mine. It's the story of 24-year-old Timmy, an entrepreneur I met this summer when I was running a program to help him start his business. Now, Timmy did everything right. He found a real customer need. He devised an innovative distribution method for his product, and it just went gangbusters. He sold out, the very first day he launched, he sold out in 2 hours and doubled his money. And now he's on the track to expanding his business and creating jobs. So that's pretty much a textbook case of the successful young entrepreneur story, right? And it is. But here's the thing. It didn't happen here in Palo Alto, but here in Lagos, Nigeria. Now, Lagos is one of the world's fastest growing megacities. 70% of the population lives in slums, and 60% of the economic activity is in the informal sector. Timmy's full name is Timilehin Akinpelu. He grew up in a polygamous family where the 3 wives of his father and all their children crowded into one small room. His product was not some sort of e-commerce luxury thing, but rather hand sanitizer, affordably and attractively distributed in recycled water bottles. And his customers were these folks, trash pickers, homeless migrants who crowd the sprawling slums of this megacity, rooting through trash with their bare hands under the sun every day. So Timmy's probably not the typical entrepreneur, right? He's not the typical person we think of when we think of the successful young business person starting some sort of world-changing venture. But I argue that we should think more about Timmy and invest in folks like him. So the reason why is that only 15% of my entrepreneurial generation are in rooms like this one, on campuses like this one. The other 85% are in developing countries. They are youth crowded into the slums of these desperate megacities, stuck in informal sector work that's often precarious and exploitative. And for them, the only mainstream stories they hear about youth making it are just that, fantasies, stories like this one. Slumdog Millionaire, this movie about a street youth who makes it big and wins the grand prize in a game show. That's kind of like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. So, I'm all for fortune and fate and game shows, but the truth is these aren't real solutions for the majority of the 85%. And this majority is increasingly poor, disenfranchised, and desperate. I think we need to find a better way to put slum youth on the track to becoming slum millionaires. And I think the way to do this is by tapping our entrepreneurial generation. That's what I've been doing for the last 3 years in the slums of Lagos, working with youth like Timmy to start businesses. And what I want to talk about with you today is why the 85% matters. How we go about tapping their incredible world-changing potential, and what we can all do, what help I need from you to make this happen. So let's start with the why. It's about youth. So it turns out that not only am I part of the most entrepreneurial generation, but also the most populous and the most precarious. According to the World Bank, we're the largest youth cohort in human history, and we are leading the largest mass migration in human history, from the world's rural areas to urban centers. And employers just can't absorb the flood of desperate, hungry, restless youth seeking jobs that they don't find in these urban centers. As a result, there are now 80 million young people who are unemployed. Another 150 million people on top of that are living very desperate, marginal livelihoods in the informal sector for less than $2 a day. Youth now make up half of the unemployed people on this planet. And as I already told you, 85% of these youth and all the problems that come with them are in the developing world, the places that need their talents and energy the most. So that's probably the first reason you should care about the 85%, frankly. The 85% has the potential to be very scary. First of all, it's a social justice issue, it's an economic issue, and it's an international security issue. Because disenfranchised youth living in poverty are prime recruiting grounds for international terrorists and local criminal organizations. They cost their countries and local economies millions, if not billions, in lost potential and productivity. And in the informal sector where they're trapped, they're very vulnerable to exploitation. The second reason you should care is that they actually represent a really big untapped opportunity. It turns out if we're able to cut the youth unemployment in sub-Saharan Africa by half, we would actually boost regional GDP by 12 to 19%. That's huge. Moreover, folks like C.K. Prahalad here contend that there's a large untapped market here at the bottom of the pyramid, a multi-trillion-dollar fortune at the bottom of the pyramid that's up for grabs for anyone who can see the poor not as victims or beneficiaries, but as customers and collaborators. The last reason I have to care deeply about the 85% is pretty personal. As you know, I've been working at the bottom of the pyramid with my peers in the 85%. And I've got a big group of global kind of youth volunteers that are focused on eking out the opportunities that we know exist in this population. Now, we reject labels like lost generation and ticking time bomb that are often used to describe this 85%. Instead, we call ourselves Generation Enterprise. We think that Generation Enterprise is the only term that truly captures the hope and resilience that these youth bring in terms of their life experience and their dreams when it comes to building a better future for themselves and their communities. And I have to say, I have learned at least as much as I've taught my peers in the 85%. And I truly believe that this spirit of friendship and collaboration is actually a humbler, more inclusive, frankly, better way to do economic development work in the 21st century. Also, it's very tough not to feel deeply connected to my peers when they send me flip cam videos like the one I'm about to show you. So, where were we? So now that we've established why we should care about the 85%, let's talk about Generation Enterprise and what we're doing about it. So we've developed a model that focuses on tapping this potential in the 85%, a model that gets youth off the streets and running businesses. This is how it works. So it all starts with empathy. We partner with local nonprofits that refer youth to us, and we listen to their stories. We're screening them to be candidates in our tightly knitted small cohorts of Generation Enterprise Fellows. Now, what we look for two things. The first is actions they've taken to improve their lives. This could be something like escaping prostitution, or it could be as simple as seeking vocational training. We also look for actions they've taken to care for others. So they often manifest themselves in either family situations or being the leaders of a local gang. Next, what we do is we focus on these stories that allow them to tap their deep personal experiences to truly uncover customer needs in the communities they hope to serve with business solutions. So the story I want to share is one of Bosch, who's right here. So he came to us from Freedom Foundation, which was an NGO that operates safe houses for ex-gang members, ex-drug addicts, and ex-sex workers. And he came to us at a point when he was actually living in this one-room shack made of scraps of metal and wood. And he was working these odd jobs in local churches to support his grandmother and his 3 sisters because his parents were gone. So his dream was to build a real house for his grandma and send his sisters to school. And he was a perfect Gen Fellow because folks like him, folks like Bosch, are really eager to prove themselves and work really hard. And they also tap their deep personal experiences to uncover these community needs. Bosch ended up, anyone you talk to here at the design school at Stanford will talk about how deep empathy is at the heart of design thinking. And Bosch was able to use these design thinking tools to design his own business, which captures, it's a photography business that captures family moments and community events. The second thing we do is take small bets. So after training our Generation Enterprise Fellows, we then make small bets on them and their ideas. We give them a mere $10, which they can use to just test the most basic version of their business ideas. They pool their funds and go through a series of business experiments that help them understand whether they're tapping a true consumer need in a way that's valuable enough for people to pay for. And the reason why that works is it's about small bets. And small bets are the best way to fail fast, get smarter for cheap, right? And whether you're talking about Starbucks retail format or Google's PageRank algorithm, big breakthroughs come out of small bets. And anyone here in Silicon Valley will tell you that, business plans don't survive their first contact with reality. What you need to do is get out of the building and test it. And so that's what two of our Generation Enterprise Fellows did this summer. Judith and Olumide ended up trying to tackle the problem of nutrition in slums. So it turns out that whether you're living in Agege, Lagos, or the Bronx in New York City, the poorer you are, the poorer you eat. And there's actually research that shows that if you give a poor person $1 for food, they're going to spend it on sugar, because something sugary, because almost biochemically, their bodies crave the comfort. So Judith and Olumide had a big problem cut out for them. How do you make healthy food attractive and affordable to the poor in slums? And so they went through a series of different experiments until they hit the jackpot by learning that they could serve individual serving-sized fruit salads, refreshingly chilled and delivered to you while you work. And the reason why they knew they'd hit the jackpot and that it was time to make a bigger bet was that they started selling 30 packs a day. The last thing we do, finally, is launch the full business. So at this point, we've finished the test phase, and we've basically figured out what most venture capitalists wish they could do, which is put their potential investees under a microscope for 4 months. Every day, work alongside them and understand how they're serving their customers, how they're managing their money, how they're refining their businesses. So at this point, we've already shaken out the best ideas and the most viable and hardworking youth. And we then put in a larger investment of up to $1,000. So I know that's large is all relative, but here it's really large. It's $1,000 to more fully build out the business. And successful fellows then reach out to us and are able to channel their profits back to Generation Enterprise, as well as create at least 5 other jobs for at-risk, homeless, and unemployed youth in their communities. So what we're essentially doing here is we're taking traditional venture capital into the slums, turning it on its head, and giving it a bit more heart. Because traditional venture capital basically involves looking for, but ultimately waiting for the best entrepreneurs to match with the best ideas and come to you so you can decide whether to invest or not. What we do is we start with the right youth, the right entrepreneurs. We co-create the right businesses with them, and then we go big and we go into business together. And for us, this is the most sustainable solution to solving this problem of youth unemployment. So now we come to the end. What can you do to help? Now, the answer to this is simple. I want you to join me in playing a game of who wants to back a slum millionaire. So there's 3 steps to this. It's very simple to play. The first one is share what you know. Now, we've already run 3 pilots in Lagos. We've worked with 45 youth and launched 14 low-tech consumer brands in the slums. Now what we're looking to do is scale. We know we've got something that works here. But there are a lot of questions. Scaling is really tough. I mean, how do you mass produce startups? How do you find the right business models? Who do you work with? Who can we partner with? These are all questions I need your help answering. And so I ask you today to actually email me at clara@generationenterprise.org. Think about who we should talk to, who in your contacts, what in your experience can help us get to scale. The second is to make small bets. Again, it didn't take $1 million or a game show to take Timmy or Judith or Lumide out of poverty and give them choices and dignity. So I'm asking you for $10. This is all it takes to actually test a business to make sure it's viable. And then if it is, then we'll figure out how to make the bigger investment. The last thing to do is, if you're really brave, launch an incubator. Generation Enterprise has been invited to 15 different countries, from India to Colombia to Cameroon. We can't be in all those places at once, but we want to reach these youth. So if you're willing, join us as a team member, come on as a board member, or launch your own incubator and share what you're learning when it comes to making slum millionaires. So I want to finish by just going back to that slum millionaire in the making, Timmy. Remember him? He's the guy from Timmy's Soap. And his business is growing rapidly. He could expand to cover all the different zones in the city of Lagos and all the thousands of trash pickers who could use his services. He could become the Bath and Body Works of Nigeria. No matter what happens, though, he is making money that will keep him off the streets, allow him to start a family, hire others, and frankly, become a respected and contributing member of his community. And really, that's where we want to get to. I think that's the goal. Because even if Timmy falls short of becoming a slum millionaire, at the end of the day, Timmy, his family, his employees, and all of us who care about this entrepreneurial generation will have won. Thank you.